Hi, this is Matt Donegan at Challenger Stories. I'm here with Dean Morgan. Dean is the founder and MD of First Migration, one of the UK's leading immigration agencies. Dean, tell me about the business. How long have you been going?
Yeah, so we started First Migration back in September 2007. So it's going to be about 18 years that, we've been doing this.
8.
18 years, yeah, it's gone quickly. I remember when I first started, it was so nerve-wracking. You borrow loads of money, you got faith in yourself, you think you can build your own business, do it bigger and better than everybody else. But yeah, you can do. I have to say, when I first started, everyone tried to convince me not to do it. And it's funny looking back 18 years later and knowing that I was right and they were wrong. So if you're thinking of starting your own business, do it.
So, Dean, I'm going to come back to that in a minute because it's a great perspective on running a business, and it's the only perspective to have. What made you start it in the first place? Because 18 years, we'll come on to what makes the First Migration special in a minute, but what was the motivation? Why go down this route?
Yeah, I think you're kind of born an entrepreneur in some ways. Not for everyone. Some people get fed up with working for other people and then fall into it that way. But I've always wanted to have my own business. I kind of knew I was too much of a maverick at school and university. So it was like the corporate world's not really for me. I want to get a little dinghy, go out into the uncharted waters and make it my own way. So I fell into a job where after university, I was studying business management. And when I finished, I kind of fell into small businesses and having to help to turn them around. And I really enjoyed that side of things. That's the way the universe worked. And then I left the job and I kind of parted for about 6 months because I got a good payoff. And then I went to my mum, bless her, God rest her soul, and said, Mum, I need a job. And my mum always found all the jobs in our family. So she went through and found an article and it said general manager of an immigration consultancy. And she goes, there you go, you're a general manager, you manage things. And I was like, Mum, what do I know about immigration law? I've got no idea about it. I mean, no. So she was like, well, give it a try. So I went along and I was the cheapest option. My old boss, bless him, he didn't like spending money. So I was the cheapest option. He put his faith in me. And then, his business was failing. So I turned it around, paid all his debts off, could see great potential. And I love the fact practicing the legal arts, drafting legal cover letters, arguing the law, convincing people to do what you want them to do, but in the written word. And you're making a difference in people's lives. So it was like immigration was good money. I won't lie. It was helping people and yeah, really making a difference in people's lives. So that's why I started. But to be honest, actually, really why I started was, I'll never forget this. He turned his business around. It was doing really well. I had a target to hit for figures, for the revenue, for the month. And my old boss was just running a web team over in Eastern Europe. And his web team took the website down for 4 days. And I missed my target, 6-figure target, by a couple of thousand. And I was going to get £700 bonus. And he didn't give it. And our team in London that I built, that worked for me, they pulled every stop out. And it was his team that let everyone down. So I went home and told my dad. My dad was proper old school London, clubs and car parking and clamping security, that kind of thing. And I'll never forget, and I'll tone down what he said to me. He went, you're a mug, son. And I went, what? And he went, you're making that guy all that money, he paid all his debts off, and he does you down like that. You're a mug. And he walked off. And my dad, he knew exactly how to motivate me. So I thought, you know what? I can't believe he did me down like that. So, and it was the best thing that ever happened. So from that moment on, all I could think about was First Migration. And it started. And with 40,000 visa approvals, we've had 33 refusals, incorrect ones from the Home Office in 18 years. And we're 5 stars on Trustpilot. So,
Amazing.
It's best thing that ever happened.
Amazing. So I'm a professional coach, right? So I'm a business coach, executive coach, and what you're saying to me is that actually the best piece of advice I could give someone, or the best motivation I could give them, is just call them a mug.
Yeah, you're a mug, because
we get motivated by different things, right? So yeah, I get that.
We are. And look, having your own business is stressful. If my dad always said, son, if it was easy, everyone would do it,
Yeah.
But the risk is worth the reward, there are certain things in business you can't buy. And when I wake up every day, I'm beholden to no one. I am my boss. It's my business. It's my website. It's my reputation. It's my success. And that's as close in this place as you're ever going to get to freedom, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Let's talk about that reputation thing. So First Migration got a fantastic reputation, right? Absolutely. You've got tons of 5-star reviews.
One of the best.
You've got your clients, if they've got any challenges, they're going to come back to you. They trust you. Why? Why do they trust you? Why did you get all those good, great reviews?
First Migration is a lifestyle business for the owners, and we always wanted to keep it so that if you come to First Migration, we're not selling computers, or things like that. We're selling your future to you. And we're guaranteeing your future to you. So we get it wrong, you end up going back to live in a country that you don't want to live in. So there's so much riding on it that we wanted to do it differently. So at First Migration, you deal directly with the owners, not our support staff. They're absolutely amazing, top notch. You deal with us. It's our reputation, it's our brand, it's our baby. We spent the best part of 2 decades building this business. And so when you're dealing with us versus going to another consultancy and dealing with an employee who's paid a fixed wage, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not their brand and their reputation necessarily on the line. So that's how we've been able to set ourselves aside from all our competition, in my opinion.
Okay. And are you in predominantly the consumer market or the business market? Who's your main type?
Yeah, we have corporate clients, so we deal with skilled worker visas, sponsor licenses, certificates of sponsorship. So that's, a large part of the UK immigration system. But, I've always preferred dealing with the individuals, the spouse visas. I always joke about being the Cupid of visas. People are so grateful when you bring them together and they've been apart. And if you've ever spent any time apart from the person you love, you know that it means a little bit more to you than if you're kind of getting a new job and you're getting a skilled worker and going to live in another country. So yeah, so we do 50-50 really, but it's always the individuals that it makes the biggest difference to them. So that's the most rewarding, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. That's wonderful, because then it's not just about the money. It's about someone's life. That's hugely important. I mean, that's you literally.
And the government's made it so stressful. They made it so stressful. So rugby, but there's so much money on the line. When I first started, a visa cost £190 per applicant. My clients are paying £5,000 per applicant every 2.5 years. So if you're a husband and wife with 3 kids, you're paying £25,000 in fees. How many people do you know that have £25,000 they save up in cash with 2 or 3 kids every few years? It's crazy. So that's why it's so stressful. Plus, if you've been able to travel the world, very fortunate. I lived in India for a year and South Africa for a year this lifetime. And, we're very spoiled here and we don't realize how lucky we are. And that's why it means so much to so many people to come and have a better life and a better lifestyle. But it's not easy for them. So, but look, the way that we've targeted that, I realized that whenever you're doing a consultancy work and it means a lot to people, or they're paying a lot of fees to you and they expect a good service from you, is that they have my mobile number. They can text me for a call back whenever they want. Aga, my business partner, I joke that she's like a T1000 Terminator or GPT. Her Polish female ability to reply to emails is truly staggering. So, you've always can contact us. You can talk to me. I will help you through. And I also found that instead of trying to just leave it to us, we're the experts, is teach my clients. And then when they come back to me for the next visa, they know what they're doing. They know how to do it themselves, and defend themselves from the Home Office, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So successful business, lifestyle business, really, really happy with what you've done. What kind of challenges have there been along the way? Clearly it wasn't easy going from day one. You've built a team, you've kind of inherited a team moving forward. When you stepped away from your previous employer, you started out on your own. What's been the biggest challenge so far?
The biggest challenge, that's a good question. Learning to not worry about the monthly figures, I think, was the hardest thing for me. I spent the first 7 to 10 years of my business watching the figures on the board every day. It consumed me. I was worried that we wouldn't do well enough and that we would hit hard times and maybe the business would fail. Dean, you're 7, 8, 10 years in. You're not just starting it. And so I do remember one day that I just had enough. I just was so sick of this. It was after about, I don't know, probably about 5, before the pandemic. So maybe 6 years ago, something like that. I just was like, do you know what? If this business fails, good. I've had enough of worrying about the figures every single month. It was like my own little mini breakdown. And I went, right, I'm just going to get on with the business, worry about the website, the clients, our reputation and all that stuff. And it is what it is. And you know what? As soon as I gave up worrying about the figures, our business just took off again. And I'm sure there's some kind of spiritual kind of lesson to be learned in there, you know? Instead of focusing on the negative and projecting the negative about the figures every day, I got on with doing productive things that are going to influence the figures in a positive way without worrying about the figures. The figures took care of themselves. So I kind of wish I'd learned that a little bit earlier on in business, but it's not always easy to learn these things unless sometimes you just had enough and finally you get it.
So focusing on the way forward as opposed and a vision about where you're going to get to and how you're going to get there, as
Yeah.
opposed to the challenges and the issues that are right directly in front of your face, because
Yeah.
that's a kind of management issue, and it's a point
Yeah.
of negativity, isn't it? When you're looking at stuff that's there, it can be quite
Yeah.
negative. It can bring you down. And as a business leader, as a
Yeah.
founder, as the person who's directing the business, it's about where you're going to take it. And you've obviously focused on the right thing, and the negative stuff is just round out. That's great. Love that. Love that.
No, I appreciate it. My dad always said at the very beginning, the best advice I ever got when I started the business. I remember he sat me down in the office and he went, "Remember, son," he goes, "don't chase the money, chase the approvals. With the approvals comes the money."
He's
And
so
I was
right.
like,
He's so
"What are you
right.
going on about?" Like, I want to be successful. I want more money to grow the business and to be more successful. And he's like, "No, you got to get it right. It's not about the money. It's about the approvals and the reputation. You get that right, you got a business for life." And here I am 20 years later. Yeah, it's not about the money, it's about the reputation, very much.
It's about, I absolutely agree, and it's about generating as much value for as many people as you can do. And
Yeah.
that's the way to generate real value in a business. There's a few different points of principle when it comes to value, because there's money, but there's also
Yeah.
time, there's also stress, there's also the personal and sometimes spiritual rewards you get from running a business, from doing what you guys do, which is you employ people to provide a great service that is going to positively impact your customer's life. So you're an
Yeah.
employer paying people's mortgages.
Yeah.
That's always super powerful, and that is what's really misunderstood for people who don't run businesses. They don't get
Yeah.
the sense of fulfillment that you can get by running a business. So look, I take my hat off to all business owners, but what you're doing is absolutely fantastic, because it's for a different reason as well. Is there anybody? Is there anybody that you've admired in the past, aside of your dad, who's obviously been someone who's had an impact on you? Have there been kind of any business leaders or any leaders in general that you've kind of either modelled yourself or you've taken inspiration from?
No, yeah, it's a great question. Inspiration. My neighbour when I was growing up is a gentleman called Mark Reynolds, and hopefully he won't mind me saying so. But he's the executive chairman of Mace Group, one of the big building companies. And when I was younger, I saw him start as like a middle manager. And then over my lifetime, he took over the business, run it, grew it, made it into what it is today. And he's now the executive chairman of a multinational company. And what people will never see is I used to see his car coming back late at night and being the first out in the morning. And no one's worked harder than Mark. So, when you're tired, you're there having to do emails at 10 o'clock at night because you don't want to wake up the next morning and have to start your day off on a bad note. What Mark do? Get on with it. Get it done. The man doesn't take prisoners and he's an inspiration for that reason.
So there's an expression that I sometimes use, which is business owners should wear capes and not chains. And having that kind of mindset, it's the stuff that often isn't seen, that you just
Yeah.
described what Mark was doing there. So that's great that he's inspired you to that. Would you have done anything different setting up the business?
Yeah, I tried to chew off too much when I first started, and as an example, I wanted to do UK visas, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, I wanted to do it all and I wanted to be the biggest and the best and blah, blah, blah. And, we almost come unstuck. I don't mind, I tell my clients this story, but we almost come unstuck in the sense that we had a great lady working for us called Charlene, and she was dealing with the non-UK side of things. She had a really good opportunity to come up with study and she wanted to leave. And then obviously at that point, you realize I'm doing things I cannot do myself as the business owner. And that's such an important point. There's nothing in first migration I cannot do myself. Accounts, I do the marketing, the website, video generate. I'll do it all because that experience taught me you cannot be doing things for your clients or offering services that you cannot deliver yourself if you're dependent on a staff member and you're not able to do it. And there are exceptions, maybe, HGV driver and you don't have an HGV license. But again, if you've got that kind of business, go get an HGV license. If that guy doesn't turn up today, you need to be able to drive the truck yourself. And so we got very lucky when that happened, because there's a great company out there called Commonwealth Immigration, and I'll forever be indebted to them. We outsourced the cases, everyone got approved, and they saved our reputation. But it was a very valuable lesson to learn in business. You do one thing, specialize in it, and become the best in your field or your industry in that one thing, not trying to take on too much and then fail at everything and ruin your reputation.
Niche is super powerful in business. Niche is absolutely, you're completely right there. It's interesting that what you were saying to me then about doing everything inside the business, because you've made that choice because it's a lifestyle business. Of course, if you're going to scale a business, you need to take your hands off the steering wheel and let other people do the things that they're brilliant at, of course. So you're happy with having the lifestyle business then?
Yeah, very much so. Like, I'm grateful that I don't see my business as a chore in any way. I look forward to my client meetings. I'm blessed. I get to have a laugh and a joke with people in every country in the world every day. Plus, we do visas and everything else. And so it's that, getting to talk to people from all over the world. I get to teach them like you do. You can't put a price on. That's rewarding. The money comes, the money goes, you have good years, you have bad years. Rewarding element of helping, teaching, engaging with people from around the world, as I say, is priceless. You can't buy.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've spoken about some of the challenges that you've had. Talked about what makes it special. So clients, when they come to First Migration, they're coming to you, right? And then you're spreading the work out, and you haven't got account managers running multiple accounts or distilling down what the service offering is. And you've mentioned kind of what you would have done differently. Is there one moment? Was there one time in the business that best summed up your journey? Was there one experience that made you think this is what it's all about?
Yeah, but it's not maybe what you think it was. I was out having a meal by St Paul's, and my first job was in Fleet Street. So I left my friends, and this was about 2 years ago. So I've been, doing this for 16 years at that point. And I was walking home, and something just came through and told me, go and have a walk trip down memory lane and go back to Fleet Street and have a look. And it was completely dead. It was about 11 o'clock on a Friday. There's only street cleaners there. And I walked back to the front of the building, and I remember how all my breaks, I would be outside pacing up and down, thinking to myself, how am I going to have my own business? How am I going to be successful? And then all the memories of, oh my God, I'm going to do this. And what happens if I fail? I borrowed money from the bank and my family. This is my only thing that I can imagine doing. This is going to change my whole life forever. But what if I fail? And then to look at it back 16 years later, to stand outside, there's no one else around, it's an empty street, and think everything I dreamed of, like pacing up and down for 2 years that I wish had happened, had come true. That's the true blessing. Talk about the secret. I don't know.
That's absolutely fantastic, Dean. That's kind of that step back through time and the validation of I made the right decision. Running a business isn't for everybody. It's just not everybody's cut out for it. And look, when you run businesses, you make lots of mistakes along the way. It's stressful. It could be a lonely place. But when you look back and you say, I wanted that and I've got it, and now I've got the life that I want, that you made the right decision, that's quite inspirational. So well, thank you for sharing that. That's a great.
I appreciate it.
Couple of last questions. The first one is there any bit of learning that you can share, like a book or a podcast or a film, even a phrase that you'd like to pass on to other businesses?
Yeah, it's one that my mum gave me, God rest her soul. And it's, Buddha's words, accept what is, let go of what was, and have faith in what will be. And, I meditate on this for years. But in business, it could have kept me in far better stead. Because it's hard as a business owner to enjoy it. Because if you're the kind of person that started their own business, you believe that you can be successful. You do have belief. You doubt yourself, because you don't have the confidence and the experience yet. But in your heart, you can do it. And I wish I'd enjoyed it a little bit more along the way. I could go back to when I was 18, I would be like, have more faith in yourself and don't listen to anybody else. It was amazing when I went to start First Migration because I got the logo, I got the brand, I got the idea, I had the dream, this is going to change the world, this is my future, it can't get any better than this. And everyone I went to see just crapped all over it and was like, but there's 1,000 immigration consultancies. Why would you be? Well, why would why would you do it? Oh, it's very risky. Oh, did they? Oh, 2007. I started my own business 3 weeks before Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns went bust, and we had the great financial crisis. And I do remember sitting in the office just after that happened, going, "You got to be kidding me, universe! I go and take the gamble of a lifetime to start my own business, and I get something called the Great Financial Crisis. Really?" And it was just that kind of like, oh God. But here's the irony. Some of our best years were 2008 to 2012. So if you would listen to the media, you would listen to your family and friends. And look, one thing I'd say to you when they do try and ruin your idea, if people do, remember, they're not ruining your idea. You're reminding them of their own sense of failure. They probably had their own dream of doing a business, and you're reminding them of the fact that they didn't have the courage to do it. So everyone told me not to do it. And as I said to you, I took a leap of faith. I backed myself and bet on myself. And when your back's against the wall, you'll make it happen. Like the Dark Knight. Well, how does you jump across the ledge? It only works if you don't have a safety rope, because then you have to make it. You don't have a choice. You will.
Yeah.
So,
two things on that, Dean. Two things on that, and you've inspired me to bring these both up. Number one, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has this expression, and I love it. Is Plan B is make Plan A work, which I think is fantastic, because that's like the rope, right? That is without the safety rope. Plan B is to make Plan A work. And the second thing around people who don't take the jump, who don't take the leap, often that's because of fear. And fear, the acronym is false expectations appearing real, right? They haven't got the faith that they can go out and do it. And it isn't, to be sure, it is not for everybody. Running a business is not for everybody. But whoever runs a business has my utter respect and support, because it's tough, but my God, it's rewarding. It is absolutely rewarding. So, yeah, inspirational stuff. One last question, Dean. One last question here, and that is, you meet your 18-year-old self walking along the street in Fleet Street. In fact, let's take it another way. Let's not look at the 18-year-old self. The chap that you were on in Fleet Street, pacing up and down. What would you say to the person now?
Do it, because it's better to, like my mum always said, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. And I think from a business point of view, what's worse, like Rudyard Kipling say with his poem, What If? What is worse? What's the worst that could happen? You fail, you lose some money, you're young, you'll make more money, you pay the debt off, you'll learn something from it. But what happens if you didn't do it? What if spending the rest of your lifetime wondering how different your life would have been if you had done it? And I would rather fail, and I'd rather fail and not win. But at least I know I tried, and I know that it wasn't my destiny. It's not meant to be. But yeah, I would say to myself, you got to do it. And I did in the end, but we're skipping out so much of it. There was like, I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do it. Oh my God, am I doing the right thing? There was so much of that. I remember the first day I sat in the office going, oh my Lord. It was overlooking Chancery Lane. I wanted a porn star office, you pardon my French. I was like, because I spent 2 years planning this whole thing, making, and then it was always a little bit further away. So it gave me so much hope of a brighter future. And then suddenly you're in reality. And now you're not talking about it, and you've got to make it happen. It's done now. And that was, daunting, very, very daunting. But I'd rather have tried, and I'm glad I did. It was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, brilliant. Dean, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. It's inspiring for someone to be so open about their business journey and about their motivations and their passions for driving a business. So First Migration, great success. It's delivered the lifestyle that you want. And at the end of the day, when you're building a business, it's to deliver the lifestyle that you want and not end up with a lifestyle because the business has dictated it to you. You've gone the right direction for you, which is fantastic. So Dean, really appreciate your time today. Anybody looking for immigration services, the website is what?
It's www.firstmigration.com.
Perfect. Very simple.
Appreciate that, Matt. Thanks for the opportunity.
You're really welcome. It's been a real pleasure speaking to someone who's just been so open about their journeys. Dean, thank you very much. Speak again soon.
Sure. Thanks a lot. God bless, Matt. Thanks.